AITA for being willing to watch my brother's kids regularly but never my sister's kids when she may lose her job without help. My brother pays me well for this. I, 24, female, have known since I was a teenager that I never wanted to have kids. My husband feels the same way. We are both very much child-free by choice, and honestly, we are not huge fans of kids in general. We are happy with our quiet, introverted life together. We work from home, spend most evenings gaming or reading, and enjoy our peaceful routines. I have 2 siblings, an older brother who is 29 and an older sister who is 31. My brother and his wife have twins, a boy and a girl, both 6 years old. The twins are, honestly, the easiest kids I have ever encountered. They are very quiet, extremely well-behaved, and largely prefer to be left alone. There has been some speculation within the family that they might be on the spectrum, although nothing official has been diagnosed yet. They are just very self-sufficient little humans who barely speak unless spoken to, and they mostly just hang out with each other. They love to read, play games on their Nintendo Switch, or just sit quietly side by side doing puzzles. They do not run around, they do not scream, they do not demand constant attention. Since I work from home and my brother and his wife both work full-time jobs in healthcare, where leaving in the middle of a shift is not really an option, I am listed as the emergency contact for the twins at their school. I get called to pick them up sometimes if one of them gets sick or if there is some kind of emergency. I also occasionally watch them when my brother needs help running errands, or just to give him and his wife a night out every now and then. I never mind it. To be honest, it is the easiest babysitting gig in the world. When they are over, I set them up in the living room with some snacks and their Switch, and they entertain themselves quietly for hours. I can stay in my office and work or play games without being interrupted. Sometimes they even make their own sandwiches if they get hungry. It barely feels like babysitting. My brother is always very appreciative and respectful about asking for help, and he pays me well whenever he asks me to watch them for longer periods, like on date nights. I genuinely do not mind helping him out because the twins are so easy that it feels like doing a favor for a friend who barely needs anything from you. Now, my sister's situation is very different. She has 3 kids, a 7-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old boy. Her kids are, frankly, a lot. Every family gathering turns into a circus because of them. The 7-year-old is constantly trying to run off and get into things he should not. You have to keep eyes on him at all times because he will disappear in a second if you turn your back. The 4-year-old has a screaming problem. He screams when he is happy, screams when he is mad, screams when he does not get his way. He also throws things, hits his brothers, and melts down regularly over pretty much anything. And then, of course, the 2-year-old is a typical 2-year-old, completely dependent, always needing to be picked up, fed, changed, entertained. I have never babysat for my sister. She has asked me many times over the years, and every time I have politely but firmly said no. I have never changed a diaper in my life, and I do not want to start now. The idea of spending even a few hours trying to wrangle 3 chaotic young kids sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. It is not that I hate her kids personally, they are kids, they cannot help being high energy and needy, but I know my limits, and I know I am not equipped to handle that kind of situation without completely losing my mind. Last year, my sister's husband left her. It was a big messy situation. He is a long-haul trucker, and while he does pay child support, he has basically dropped out of the kids' lives otherwise. He never comes to visit, never calls, nothing. My sister has been trying to handle everything on her own, and I do feel bad for her. I really do. I would not wish her situation on anyone. But at the same time, I am not willing to destroy my own mental health or jeopardize my career because of the choices she and her ex-husband made. Last week, her 4-year-old bit another kid at preschool. The preschool has a very strict policy: if a kid bites, they are suspended for a week. She got a call from the school telling her she had to come pick him up immediately and keep him home for a full week. She called me, practically begging me to go pick him up and babysit him during the day for the entire week because otherwise she would lose her job. I told her no. I work from home, yes, but I still have a full-time job. I have meetings. I have deadlines. I am trying to get promoted right now and my boss is watching me closely. I cannot spend my workdays supervising a difficult 4-year-old who requires constant attention. It would be completely different if it was like with my brother's kids, where I could just set them up with some quiet activities and check in once in a while. Her kid would need me to be fully hands-on, probably all day. I would not get any work done, and it would make me look completely unprofessional. She absolutely lost it. A few days later, when we were all at our mother's house for a family dinner, she brought it up again in front of everyone. She started crying and yelling, saying it was not fair that I always helped my brother but never her. She said I was picking favorites and abandoning her in her time of need. I tried to explain, as calmly as I could, that it is not about playing favorites. It is about the reality of the situation. Her kids require way more supervision and energy than my brother's kids do. It is not just a simple favor, it would be an entire second full-time job for me, and I cannot do that right now, not when my career is on the line. She sobbed and said that she did not get to choose how easy or hard her kids turned out to be, and that as her sister, I should be willing to step up no matter what. I told her I understood that she was struggling, but that I have to look out for myself too. I have my own responsibilities. I am not a stay-at-home babysitter. She kept crying and eventually had to leave the dinner early because she was so upset. Since then, things have been tense between us. She has been texting me long paragraphs about how I am selfish and heartless and that family is supposed to be there for each other no matter what. My mother is trying to stay neutral, but I can tell she is disappointed in me too. Meanwhile, my brother has been supportive and says I did the right thing by setting boundaries, but the guilt is still eating at me a little. So am I the asshole for refusing to babysit my sister's kid, even though I do watch my brother's kids? Update 1. My sister, Amanda, would not let it go. She continued complaining about me to literally anyone who would listen. Our mom, our aunts and uncles, even distant cousins I had not spoken to in years were suddenly leaving passive-aggressive comments on my Facebook posts. It was like she had launched a full-scale pity campaign. Every time I opened social media, there was some vague post about how you find out who your real family is when times are hard. Family friends who barely even knew the situation were messaging me, telling me to just be there for my sister because she needed me more than ever. It got to the point where even my mom, who had initially been trying to stay neutral, sat me down one evening and said something along the lines of, "I know it's hard, but family has to come through when times are tough." She looked so tired, so worn out by the constant drama, that I just nodded, even though inside I was screaming. I was trying so hard to keep my head above water at work, and every day felt like an uphill battle against guilt, shame, and pressure I never asked for. Every time my phone buzzed with another text or call, I felt my stomach knot up, wondering who else was going to lay into me about it. Then, just when I thought it could not get worse, even my brother Ethan, the one person who had been firmly in my corner the entire time, called me one evening. He sounded uncomfortable, almost apologetic, but he asked if I could please help Amanda out, just this once. He explained that he was taking time off work to stay home with his twins for the week, so he would not need me to pick them up or babysit. He said he understood it was a lot, but it would really mean a lot to the family if I could step up for Amanda, even if it was just for a few days. Hearing it come from Ethan broke something in me. I honestly felt like I had no way out anymore. I had been holding the line so firmly, repeating to myself over and over that it was not my responsibility, that it was okay to say no, but now it felt like everyone, even the people I trusted most, were siding against me. I was already hanging by a thread with work. My manager had hinted at an upcoming promotion if I could just keep up the momentum on a few big projects. My hands were shaking when I agreed, because I knew it was going to be a disaster, but I was terrified of pushing my family even further away. I thought if I just did this one thing, they would leave me alone, that Amanda would finally see I had tried. Amanda showed up the next morning with her 3 kids in tow. She barely looked me in the eye. The 7-year-old immediately started running circles around my living room, the 2-year-old was crying because he had dropped his stuffed animal somewhere between the car and the door, and the 4-year-old, the one suspended for biting, was staring at me with this wary, defensive expression, like he already knew he was going to hate being here. Amanda barely stayed long enough to give me a rushed list of important things, like snack preferences and nap schedules. I tried to stop her for a second to ask what the payment arrangement would be, because if I was giving up a week of sanity and potentially endangering my job, the least I could get was some form of compensation. She just waved her hand, already halfway out the door, and said, "We'll figure it out later," before practically sprinting to her car and peeling out of my driveway. Red flag? Absolutely. Every fiber of my being screamed at me that this was a mistake, that I was about to be trapped in the most stressful week of my life with 3 chaotic little boys who did not know me, did not listen to me, and did not want to be here. But I was too overwhelmed to argue. Update 2. The week was, as expected, a complete nightmare. From the moment Amanda dropped off her 3 kids, it was like a bomb went off in my quiet, orderly life. I had braced myself for chaos, but no amount of preparation could have possibly readied me for the reality of what I was about to endure. I had imagined it would be difficult, had pictured some temper tantrums and interruptions here and there, but I had still massively underestimated just how impossible it would be to juggle working full-time from home while managing 3 wild, high-energy, high-needs little boys who barely knew me, barely respected my authority, and absolutely did not care that I had meetings to attend, projects to complete, or any personal boundaries at all. Within the first hour, everything started falling apart. The 2-year-old immediately had a full-blown meltdown because I gave him the wrong cup. Not just crying, screaming, thrashing, throwing himself on the floor like he was being tortured. Meanwhile, the 4-year-old decided he was starving and tried to climb onto my kitchen counter to reach the cookie jar I had shoved all the way to the back, foolishly thinking it would be safe. He dragged a dining chair across the tile floor with a deafening screech that interrupted my first meeting of the morning, then slipped and nearly broke his neck before I caught him mid-fall. The 7-year-old, who I thought would at least have a shred of common sense, figured out how to unlatch the baby gate I had hastily installed in front of my office door. He barged in right in the middle of a critical Zoom meeting with my boss and started loudly narrating everything he saw on my desk: pens, sticky notes, a half-empty coffee mug, with the excitement of a kid hosting a chaotic YouTube unboxing video. I had to keep my microphone permanently muted just to survive the meetings, frantically clicking the unmute button to answer questions while simultaneously waving my arms around like a deranged air traffic controller, trying to herd the boys out of the frame. Every time I managed to shoo one child away, another one would appear, pulling at the cords under my desk or trying to climb into my lap. It only got worse as the week dragged on. I missed 2 major deadlines that I had been working toward for weeks, deadlines that could have seriously helped me secure the promotion I was gunning for. I simply could not concentrate long enough to finish anything. Every 5 minutes, someone was crying because they bumped their knee or someone else stole their toy. Someone was throwing a cup of milk across the living room, splattering the walls. Someone was sneaking into the pantry to dump cereal all over the floor. Someone was climbing the back of my couch like it was a jungle gym. It never stopped. The 2-year-old, at one particularly horrific low point, managed to get hold of the jar of peanut butter I had foolishly left out on the kitchen counter while making lunch. I had turned my back for literally 2 minutes. He somehow opened it, got his entire hand inside, and then gleefully smeared the sticky mess directly into the keys of my laptop. I walked into the room and saw him patting the keyboard with both hands, peanut butter oozing between the keys like some grotesque horror movie. I spent the next hour hunched over it, using cotton swabs, compressed air, and every cleaning supply I owned, trying desperately to save it while the 2-year-old stood behind me screaming at the top of his lungs because I had taken the peanut butter away. I was exhausted in a way I had never experienced before. It was not just physical exhaustion, it was a full-body, bone-deep kind of burnout that left me feeling hollowed out and numb. I was snapping at my husband over tiny, meaningless things. I was sleeping horribly, jolting awake at every small noise, half convinced one of the boys was getting into trouble again. Every morning, I dragged myself out of bed, chugged coffee like my life depended on it, and counted the endless hours until Amanda was supposed to come back and relieve me of this nightmare. I stopped showering regularly because I could not find a spare 5 minutes when none of the boys were trying to kill themselves or each other. I ate scraps left over from their abandoned lunches, hastily scarfed down while standing at the sink. I could feel myself unraveling a little more with every tantrum, every broken object, every shriek that echoed through the house. Finally, Saturday arrived. The day Amanda was supposed to pick them up. I barely slept the night before because the 2-year-old had gotten scared of the dark around midnight and kept crawling into my bed, only to spend the night tossing, turning, and kicking me in the ribs every 30 minutes. By the time morning came, I was running purely on caffeine and a dangerous amount of simmering rage, my nerves completely shot. Amanda finally pulled into the driveway mid-afternoon, hours later than she had originally promised. She strolled up to the front door as if nothing had happened, her hair freshly done, her makeup flawless, wearing clean, ironed clothes. She looked like she had spent the week at a spa, not abandoned her kids with an unwilling and overwhelmed babysitter. She smiled brightly, breezily thanking me in that casual, sing-song voice people use when they have absolutely no clue how badly they have inconvenienced you. It felt like a slap in the face. I waited, giving her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she would surely bring up payment. Surely, after seeing the wrecked state of my living room, the dark circles under my eyes, the scattered toys and empty juice boxes everywhere, she would acknowledge that this was not some minor favor but a massive burden I had taken on. I had saved her hundreds, maybe even over $1,000, in childcare expenses. But Amanda just kept chatting about how busy her week had been, how exhausted she was, how she had started watching some new Netflix show that she thought I would love, all while completely ignoring the devastation her children had left behind in my house. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I asked her, as calmly and firmly as I could manage, when I could expect to be paid for the week. Amanda paused in the middle of trying to zip up the 2-year-old's jacket and turned to look at me like I had just suggested something totally absurd. For a moment, genuine confusion crossed her face, like she had completely forgotten any prior conversation about compensation, like the very idea that I would expect to be paid was new and baffling information. Then she laughed, a short, sharp, condescending laugh that made my skin crawl, and said there would be no payment. According to her, I should actually be grateful that she had forgiven me for neglecting her for so long. She said that babysitting her kids for a week was me making it up to her, that it was something I owed her as a sister, an unspoken debt I should have been eager to repay. I was so stunned that for a second, I literally could not form words. I just stood there, frozen, staring at her, feeling like the ground had shifted under my feet. After everything, the stress, the missed deadlines, the peanut butter massacre, the screaming fits, the complete and total mental breakdown I had barely managed to keep at bay, I was supposed to consider this whole nightmare a privilege. When I finally found my voice, I told her, cold and steady, that I expected $500 for the week, minimum. It was still far cheaper than what she would have had to pay a professional nanny, a daycare, or even a last-minute babysitter. I thought I was being more than reasonable, considering the level of disaster I had endured for her sake. Amanda just shook her head, smiled that same smug little smile, and said she was not paying a dime. She scooped up her kids, still acting like she had somehow done me a favor, and walked out the door without a second glance. Amanda refused, said she wasn't paying a dime, and left with her kids still acting like she had somehow done me a favor. Update 3. After that disastrous week and Amanda's unbelievable refusal to pay me, I thought it would be the end of it. I figured that was the breaking point, the moment where she would finally realize that I was not going to be manipulated anymore. I was wrong. Amanda, in her usual fashion, tried a few more times to rope me into babysitting again, as if none of it had ever happened. At first, it was little things. She would send me long, guilt-tripping texts about how she had a dentist appointment or a doctor's visit or an emergency errand to run and desperately needed someone to watch the boys, just for a couple of hours. The messages always started polite but quickly spiraled into emotional pleas about how hard it was being a single mom and how unfair it was that she had no one to lean on. Some days she would even try sending voice notes, her voice all trembly and sad, like she was on the verge of tears. It would have been heartbreaking if I had not already lived through a week of absolute hell under her ruthless expectations. The first couple of times, I considered responding, if only to formally say no. But honestly, I realized that even acknowledging her requests gave her room to argue, to guilt-trip, to wear me down the way she had before. So I stopped responding altogether. I left the texts unread. I turned off read receipts. I focused on my job, my home, and the peaceful life I had worked so hard to build for myself. If Amanda wanted help, she was going to have to find it somewhere else. Meanwhile, I continued helping out Ethan with his twins when he needed me. It never felt like work with them. Ethan always treated me with nothing but respect and gratitude. He always confirmed plans in advance, paid me fairly and promptly, and never made me feel like I owed him anything. Watching the twins was easy, almost soothing compared to the chaos of Amanda's house. They would sit together reading books, building elaborate Minecraft worlds, or quietly playing puzzles while I worked in my office. If they needed anything, it was simple, refilling a juice cup, helping with a tricky video game level, answering a few curious questions about dinosaurs or outer space. It never disrupted my day, and honestly, spending time with them never left me feeling drained. If anything, it reminded me that not all interactions with kids had to be a nightmare. Amanda, on the other hand, was not doing so well. After I stopped replying to her requests, she was forced to find other childcare options. She ended up hiring a professional nanny. And not just a casual sitter she could underpay and guilt into staying late, an actual trained nanny with references, contracts, and professional rates. I heard through the family grapevine that she was paying a small fortune every month, way more than she could comfortably afford, and she was livid about it. She complained non-stop to anyone who would listen. Family gatherings, social media posts, passive-aggressive comments on Facebook. She ranted about how unfair it was that she had to shell out all this money just to get a break now and then. She would post long, dramatic rants about how some people, clearly directed at me, had abandoned her when she needed them most, forcing her into this financial burden. There were so many vague Facebook posts about selfish people and family betrayals that it became almost laughable. It was as if she genuinely believed she was the victim for having to pay for a service she had no right to demand for free from others. At first, my mom tried to stay neutral, like she always had. But even she started to realize how toxic the situation had become. After seeing how much stress it had caused me, how much it had affected my work and my health, my mom finally stopped pushing me to help Amanda. I think the final straw was seeing the exhausted, hollow version of me that crawled out of that disastrous babysitting week, barely holding it together. She stopped mentioning Amanda's childcare struggles altogether, and when Amanda would start complaining at family dinners, my mom would just quietly change the subject instead of jumping to her defense. It took a while, but I realized something important through all of this. Setting boundaries is not just important, it is absolutely necessary. It is not cruel or selfish to protect your peace, your time, and your mental health. Because if someone is willing to manipulate you once, they will keep doing it again and again if you let them. They will keep taking, keep demanding, keep guilt-tripping, until you are left hollowed out and bitter, wondering how you got trapped in someone else's chaos. These days, I am just focusing on my work, my peaceful life, and my own happiness. I have made incredible strides in my career since cutting out the drama. I spend my evenings curled up with a book or gaming with my husband in our quiet, cozy home, no screaming tantrums in the background, no looming dread of guilt-trippy text messages. I take care of myself now, unapologetically. I see Ethan and the twins regularly, because helping them feels good, not draining. And when it comes to Amanda, I have no regrets. Not a single one.